Every President's Education. Welcome to an exciting journey through the educational paths of America's presidents. Have you ever wondered how the leaders of this country, from George Washington to Donald Trump, were educated? Were they top students? Or did they face their own challenges and setbacks along the way? Let's dive into the unique stories behind the education of each president and discover the moments that shaped them into the influential leaders they became. Let's get started. 1. Donald Trump, the 45th president and now elected the 47th president, grew up in Queens, New York. He went to private schools in the Jamaica Estates area, but he wasn't exactly the easiest kid to handle. He got into a lot of trouble, so his parents decided to send him to the New York Military Academy, a strict boarding school, to help him get on track. He stayed there from ages 13 to 18. After high school, Trump went to Fordham University in the Bronx, but 2 years later, he transferred to the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. By the time he turned 22, he graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Economics. 2. Joe Biden. Our 46th president grew up in Delaware, where he went to a Catholic high school. He wasn't just a student, he was also a standout athlete. Even though his grades were pretty average, he managed to rise to the top and serve as class president for both his sophomore and junior years. But his journey wasn't without challenges. He struggled with a stutter, which led to his classmates teasing him, something that clearly left an impression on him. After high school, he headed to the University of Delaware. There, he kept up his average academic performance, but chose a path that was both ambitious and relevant to his future career. He double majored in history and political science, earning his Bachelor of Arts degree. From there, he went on to law school at Syracuse University. Like his time in undergrad, his performance in law school was also pretty average, and he even faced a setback when he got caught for plagiarizing a paper during his first year. But despite these bumps along the way, he went on to pass the bar exam and became a lawyer by the time he was 26. 3. Barack Obama. Barack Obama, our 44th president, had a truly international upbringing. His parents met as students at the University of Hawaii, but they divorced when he was young. His mother remarried, and Obama spent his early school years in Indonesia, attending both Catholic and Muslim schools. His mother wanted him to have a better education, so she sent him to live with his grandparents in Hawaii. He attended the prestigious Punahou School from 5th grade through graduation. After graduating at 17, Obama moved to Los Angeles and attended Occidental College on a full scholarship. He then transferred to Columbia University in New York City, where he excelled and earned a degree in political science, specializing in international relations. After working in New York and Chicago, he got into Harvard Law School. He made history as the first African-American president of the Harvard Law Review. It was also at Harvard where he met his future wife, Michelle. He graduated with honors at 29. 4. George W. Bush, our 43rd president, attended public schools in Texas before going to the private Kincaid School after his family moved to Houston. He then followed in his father's footsteps and attended Phillips Academy, the same prestigious boarding school his dad went to. He had some academic struggles there, but made friends easily, which was important since he was far from home. He played baseball and was even head cheerleader his senior year. His favorite subject was American history. Bush also followed his father to Yale University. He was an average student, played rugby, and continued cheering. He graduated from Yale at 21 with a history degree. After serving in the Texas Air National Guard, he went back to school, this time at Harvard, earning a Master of Business Administration at 28. His estimated IQ is 124.9. 5. Bill Clinton, our 42nd president, had a modest upbringing in Arkansas, attending mostly public schools and a Catholic elementary school. At Hot Springs High School, he was a top student and played saxophone in the band. At 16, he went to Boys Nation, a mock political convention in Washington, D.C., where he shook hands with President Kennedy. That's when he decided he wanted to go into politics. After high school, he went to Georgetown University, where he was elected class president multiple times. He graduated with a degree in foreign service. To avoid being drafted into the Vietnam War, he studied at Oxford University as a Rhodes Scholar, though there was some controversy surrounding that. At 24, he transferred from Oxford to Yale Law School. There, he met his future wife, Hillary Rodham, in the library. After getting his law degree, he became a law professor at the University of Arkansas and quickly jumped into politics. His estimated IQ is 148.8. Which U.S. president's education story surprised you the most, and why? 6. George H.W. Bush, our 41st president, had a privileged upbringing in New England, although he also spent time in South Carolina with his grandparents. He attended private schools, graduating from the prestigious Phillips Academy on his 18th birthday. That very same day, he enlisted in the Navy to fight in World War II. He became a war hero and the youngest pilot in the Navy. After the war, he went to Yale University. He was in an accelerated program, graduating with honors in just 2.5 years at around 24, with a degree in economics and a minor in sociology. His estimated IQ was 130.1. 7. Ronald Reagan, our 40th president, went to public schools in Illinois. In high school, he was a star athlete and developed a passion for acting. He graduated from Dixon High School at 17 and then went to Eureka College in Illinois. He wasn't a top student academically, but he was very active on campus. He was captain of the swim team, student body president, and even participated in student protests against the college president. He graduated from Eureka at 21 with a degree in economics and sociology. Then, he went into radio and, of course, acting. His estimated IQ was 130. 8. Jimmy Carter, our 39th president, grew up in rural Georgia and attended public schools. He was a bright student who loved to read. However, he also skipped school quite a bit. Rumor has it he could have been valedictorian if he'd attended more regularly. In high school, he was in Future Farmers of America and played basketball. After graduating at 16, he took classes at Georgia Southwestern College and then transferred to Georgia Tech in Atlanta. At 18, he got into the prestigious U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis. He graduated near the top of his class at 21 and then traveled the world with the Navy. His estimated IQ was 145.1. 9. Gerald Ford, our 38th president, excelled in public school, especially in social studies. He was also a Boy Scout, achieving the highest rank of Eagle Scout. At South High School in Grand Rapids, he was a popular athlete and the captain of the football team, graduating near the top of his class at 17. He continued playing football at the University of Michigan, helping them win 2 national championships. He graduated with an economics degree, even turning down offers to play professional football with the Detroit Lions and Green Bay Packers. Instead, he coached football and boxing. Then, he decided to become a lawyer. He briefly attended the University of Michigan Law School before transferring to Yale Law School, graduating at 27. After serving in World War II, he went back to Michigan and started his own law firm. His estimated IQ was 127.1. 10. Richard Nixon, our 37th president, grew up with limited means in California and attended public schools. In high school, he played junior varsity football, but he really shined in debate and student leadership. He was a super hard worker, which helped him do well in school. He graduated 3rd in his class from Whittier High School at 17. He was offered a scholarship to Harvard, but he couldn't go because he needed to stay home and support his family, especially his brother Harold, who was sick with tuberculosis. So he went to the local Whittier College instead. He graduated with honors from Whittier at 21, with a history degree. Then he got a full scholarship to Duke University School of Law. He graduated third in his class there and then joined the military during World War II. His estimated IQ was a 131. Please comment 1 to let me know you'll be watching this video until the end. 11. Lyndon B. Johnson, our 36th president, had a modest upbringing in Texas Hill Country, attending local public schools, even a one-room schoolhouse at one point. At Johnson City High School, now named after him, he was a star in public speaking, debate, and baseball. He was even elected class president in both 11th and 12th grade. He graduated at just 15. After high school, he spent a few years trying to find work to support his family. At 18, he enrolled at Southwest Texas State Teachers College, now known as Texas State University. There, he edited the school newspaper and got involved in campus politics. He also made a difference teaching Mexican-American children in a poor part of Texas. He graduated from college at 21, right at the start of the Great Depression, and taught for a short time. He later went to Georgetown Law School but didn't finish. His estimated IQ was 127.8. 12. John F. Kennedy, our 35th president, had a privileged upbringing. He started at a public elementary school in a wealthy neighborhood in Brookline, Massachusetts. He was often sick as a child, so he missed a lot of school. Around third grade, he switched to private schools. His dad, Joe Kennedy, a famous businessman and politician, helped start a new all-boys school called Dexter, and all his sons, including John, attended. Then, the family moved to New York, where Kennedy continued at private schools, getting so-so grades. For high school, he went to Choate, a boarding school. He was popular and a bit of a prankster. He even blew up a toilet seat with a firecracker once. He also played football, basketball, and baseball. Despite his average grades, he got into Harvard, probably thanks to his dad's connections. He also briefly attended the London School of Economics and Princeton. He graduated from Harvard at 23. A year and a half later, World War II started, and he joined the Navy. His estimated IQ was 150.7. 13. Dwight D. Eisenhower, our 34th president, was another one who loved reading about history. Unlike Truman, though, he was a pretty average student. He went to public schools and graduated from Abilene High School at 18. 2 years later, he got into West Point. He played football there until a bad knee injury sidelined him. He was known for being a prankster, always up to some mischief with his friends. He got average grades at West Point, graduating in the middle of his class at 24, and then went straight into the military. He later received a lot of honorary degrees, recognizing his achievements and leadership. His estimated IQ was 131.9. 14. Harry S. Truman, our 33rd president, was a huge bookworm. He loved reading, especially history books, which probably contributed to his poor eyesight later in life. He was a top student in public school, graduating from Independence High School in Missouri at 17. He really wanted to go to West Point, but his poor eyesight prevented him from getting in. His family couldn't afford college, but he did go to Spalding's Commercial College for a semester. He had to drop out to work in a mailroom to help support his family. His estimated IQ was 127.6. 15. Franklin D. Roosevelt, our 32nd president, had a pretty unique upbringing. He grew up in a wealthy family on a large estate near Hyde Park, New York, and spent much of his childhood somewhat isolated. He was educated at home by tutors until he was 14. Then, his parents sent him to Groton, a fancy boarding school for the sons of the rich and powerful. After graduating from Groton at 18, he went on to Harvard, where he was very involved in extracurricular activities. It was at Harvard that he met his future wife, Eleanor. Just a few months before they got married, he started law school at Columbia University. He went for 2 years, but never actually graduated. However, he did pass the bar exam and became a lawyer at 25. His estimated IQ was 139.6. Do you think a president's education has a big impact on their leadership style? Let us know your thoughts. 16. Herbert Hoover, our 31st president, had a tough start in life. He was born poor, became an orphan at a young age, and he hated school. He didn't get any formal schooling until his uncle, Dr. John Minthorn, adopted him. His uncle made sure he got an education, sending him to Friends Pacific Academy in Oregon. Hoover struggled with most subjects, except for math. But he was determined to study geology in college, and somehow got into the brand new Stanford University. He did really well at Stanford, getting involved in lots of activities. Years before he became rich in the mining industry, he graduated with a geology degree when he was just 20 years old. His estimated IQ was 129.8. 17. Calvin Coolidge, our 30th president, was a pretty average student in his early years, attending public schools in Vermont. He had modest ambitions, but he aimed high for college, going to Amherst College in Massachusetts. He graduated with honors at 22, which shows he had the potential to achieve great things. It was at Amherst that he became known for his wit and public speaking skills. He could probably have been a comedian. After college, he studied law in Northampton, Massachusetts, and passed the bar exam around his 27th birthday. His estimated IQ was 127.1. 18. Warren G. Harding, our 29th president, started his education in a one-room schoolhouse with his 5 younger siblings. Imagine that. At just 14, he went to Ohio Central College, where he became the editor of the campus newspaper. He also taught while attending classes, which shows he was already a hard worker. He graduated at 16 with a Bachelor of Science degree. Talk about an early start. He went on to have a career as a journalist. His estimated IQ was 124.3. 19. Woodrow Wilson, our 28th president, is famous for being the only president with a PhD. But it wasn't always smooth sailing for him. As a kid, he might have struggled with dyslexia, and his poor eyesight made learning to read a challenge. He was schooled at home by tutors and his parents, just like Theodore Roosevelt. At 16, he went to Davidson College in North Carolina, where he excelled in logic, public speaking, Latin, and English. But he had to drop out after a year due to poor health. A couple of years later, he went to the College of New Jersey, which is now Princeton. He graduated at 22 and then started law school at the University of Virginia, but he dropped out to see a woman he was in love with. Get this, her name was Hattie Woodrow, and she was his first cousin. Oops. But he went on to become a lawyer, and then he went back to school, this time at Johns Hopkins University, where he earned his PhD at 30. He was a professor for many years, and then became the president of Princeton. His estimated IQ was 145.1. 20. William Howard Taft, our 27th president, had a bit of a tough time with his parents when it came to education. They pushed him hard, but he was a hard-working student, even if he struggled a bit. He went to public schools, graduated from Woodward High School in Cincinnati at 16, and then went on to Yale. At Yale, he was a popular wrestling champion. He graduated second in his class at 20, showing he was dedicated to his studies. Then, he went to Cincinnati Law School, and while he was there, he made extra money as a newspaper journalist covering the courts. That's when he really decided he wanted to be a judge. He later taught at various universities and even became dean of the University of Cincinnati College of Law. His estimated IQ was 126.9. Which aspect of a president's education do you think played the biggest role in their political career? Theodore Roosevelt, our 26th president, was a bit of a whirlwind. He was a sickly kid, but he got a great education from tutors at home. His family was wealthy, and he even got to travel around the world, living with a family in Germany for 5 months. At 17, he started at Harvard. He studied everything from German to history, zoology, forensics, and composition. He was also a wrestler and a boxer, which shows he was a pretty active guy. He even met his first wife, Alice Hathaway Lee, in college. After graduating from Harvard, he went to Columbia Law School, but he dropped out after a year to get into politics. He later got an honorary degree from Columbia, way after he died, back in 2008. He also got an honorary degree from Northwestern. Pretty impressive. His estimated IQ was 142.3. William McKinley, our 25th president, was a dedicated student throughout his life. He was raised in a strict Methodist household and went to a Methodist seminary in Poland, Ohio. At 17, he started at Allegheny College in Pennsylvania. But he had to drop out after a semester because he got sick and ran out of money. Being a hard worker, he became a teacher for a while. Then, he served in the Civil War, which is where he met future President Rutherford B. Hayes. After the war, he returned to Ohio to become a lawyer, studying at Albany Law School in New York. He passed the bar exam at 24, back in Ohio. His estimated IQ was 130.2. 23. Benjamin Harrison, our 23rd president, had a good start to his education. He learned in a log cabin near his home, and then got a tutor. He was always a reader, which is a great sign of a curious mind. After going to a prep school in Cincinnati, Ohio, he started at Miami University when he was 17. He was a good student, graduating near the top of his class just 2 years later. That's pretty impressive. Then he went on to study law in Cincinnati and passed the bar exam at 22. His estimated IQ was 132.2. Grover Cleveland, our 22nd president, also skipped college. He went to private schools growing up, but when his father died at 16, he had to leave school to work and support his family. He was an assistant teacher for a while, but then he headed west for Cleveland. Just kidding. He actually changed his mind and stayed in Buffalo, New York, to work for his uncle. That's where he decided to become a lawyer. He worked hard, studying on his own, and passed the bar exam at 22. He even went on to teach at Princeton later on. His estimated IQ was 131. 25. Chester A. Arthur, our 21st president, got a lot of his education at home, but he did go to school as a teenager. At 15, he started at Union College in New York, and he even worked as a teacher while he was a student to help pay for college. Now he was a bit of a prankster and wasn't the best student, but he did graduate after 3 years, even though he wasn't sure what he wanted to do with his life. He decided to become a lawyer, passed the bar exam at 25, and thanks to his dad, he got a job in a big New York City law firm. Those family connections definitely helped. His estimated IQ was 141.5. 26. James A. Garfield, our 20th president, was a true believer in education. He was even called the education president because he was such a strong supporter of making education available to everyone. He was even a teacher himself for a while. He was born into poverty and found escape through reading books. He ran away from home at 16 to become a sailor, but he got sick and had to go back. At 17, he started at a seminary and discovered he was a pretty good preacher. Later, he went to Western Reserve Eclectic Institute, which is now Hiram College, while working as a janitor. Talk about dedication. At 23, he transferred to Williams College in Massachusetts, graduating with the honors at 25. Then, he went back to teach all sorts of subjects at the Eclectic Institute, including English, Latin, Greek, history, geology, and even math. He later studied law on his own and passed the Ohio bar exam at 30. He was ambidextrous, meaning he could write with both hands, and he spoke several languages. His estimated IQ was 141.5. Rutherford B. Hayes, our 19th president, had a solid education thanks to his mom, Sophia, and his smart sister, Fanny, who taught him the classics at home. He was one of the first presidents to go to public school, which were pretty chaotic back then, with kids of all ages mixed together. Later, he went to private schools and then got into Kenyon College to study law. He was a top student. He was even valedictorian of his class in 1842. After Kenyon, he went to Harvard Law School, just like Elle Woods in the movie Legally Blonde. He graduated at 23 and passed the bar exam to become a lawyer. His estimated IQ was 133.9. 28. Ulysses S. Grant, our 18th president, wasn't exactly a school enthusiast. He didn't like his dad's tannery, where he worked as a kid. He was much more interested in horses and traveling. His family couldn't afford college, so he ended up joining the military. Luckily for him, he got accepted into West Point, a super prestigious military academy. He wasn't a star student, but he was good at math and drawing, and everyone was impressed with his horse riding skills. That's how he ended up in the Army's cavalry. His estimated IQ was 120. 29. Andrew Johnson, our 17th president, had a similar story to Lincoln when it comes to education. He didn't have any formal schooling growing up. In fact, he learned to read and write at 17. His future wife, Eliza McCardle, taught him. Pretty amazing, right? He worked as a tailor, but he was passionate about politics and wanted to learn more about the world, especially how to stand up to the rich and powerful. He had an estimated IQ of 125.7. 30. Abraham Lincoln, our 16th president, is often considered one of the greatest presidents in American history. And it's fascinating how he got his education. He had very little formal schooling, maybe a year at most. He even called his own education defective. But just like Jefferson, Madison, and Fillmore, he was a very curious man. He was self-taught, and his love of learning is what really took him far. He grew up working on farms, splitting wood, doing all sorts of hard labor. But he taught himself to read and write, often with the help of his stepmother, Sally. She shared lots of books with him, and he read everything he could get his hands on. He eventually became a lawyer, passing the bar exam at 25, which is pretty amazing considering his limited formal schooling. His estimated IQ was 140. Which of these presidents' educational paths do you think was the most challenging? 31. James Buchanan. James Buchanan, our 15th president, had a bit of a wild streak in his younger years. He went to good schools growing up, and at 16, he started at Dickinson College in Pennsylvania. But get this, he almost got expelled a couple of times for acting up. But even with his misbehavior, he still managed to graduate with honors 2 years later. That's dedication, even if it came with a few bumps in the road. Right after graduation, he started studying law on his own, which is pretty impressive. He passed the bar exam at 22 and became a lawyer. Talk about a quick learner. His estimated IQ was 125.9. 32. Franklin Pierce, our 14th president, had a pretty interesting time in school. He went to some good schools growing up, especially as a teenager. At 15, he started at Bowdoin College in Maine. That's where he met his friend, the famous writer Nathaniel Hawthorne. Pretty cool, right? Apparently, Pierce was a bit of a party animal at first, but he eventually got serious about his studies and became one of the top students in his class. After graduating from Bowdoin, he went to Northampton Law School, but he dropped out. But he still managed to become a lawyer a few years later, studying with influential family friends. He knew how to network. His estimated IQ was 134.8. 33. Millard Fillmore, our 13th president, had a really interesting story when it came to education. He grew up poor and didn't have much formal schooling. He spent most of his time working on the family farm. But here's the thing, he had a ton of ambition and an insatiable curiosity for knowledge. Even though his dad wanted him to work in the cloth trade, Millard hated it. He used his little money to buy a dictionary and even stole books to teach himself to read. That's when he met Abigail Powers, a teacher who loaned him books and helped him study. They fell in love and got married. Talk about a love story. Fillmore never went to college, but he read tons of books, and with Abigail's help, he studied to become a lawyer. He passed the bar exam at 23, which is pretty impressive. His estimated IQ was 136. 34. Zachary Taylor, our 12th president, wasn't exactly a bookworm. He went to good schools growing up, but he wasn't a big fan of academics. He wasn't known for his stellar handwriting, spelling, or grammar. You know, he was more of a doer than a thinker. From a young age, Taylor wanted to be in the military, so he skipped college altogether to pursue his dream. He was like, "School's for other people. I'm going to be a soldier." He had an estimated IQ of 125.7. 35. James K. Polk, our 11th president, had a bit of a different start in life. He wasn't always a top student. He was a sickly kid who didn't get a lot of formal schooling. At 18, he barely knew how to read or write. But that's when he really decided to buckle down and learn. He became fluent in English, Greek, and Latin. Talk about a transformation. He went on to graduate from the University of North Carolina with honors, excelling in math and classics. After that, he studied law in Nashville, Tennessee, under a big-time lawyer named Felix Grundy, who later became a U.S. Senator. That's a pretty great connection to have, right? His estimated IQ was 130.2. 36. John Tyler, our 10th president, was another one who attended the College of William and Mary. He was a bright guy who graduated at the young age of 17. He studied law and then passed the state bar exam at just 19. That's super impressive, even by today's standards. Now, here's a funny detail. He was actually too young to be a lawyer in Virginia at the time, but the judge who approved it didn't even ask him how old he was. Looks like he impressed the judge with his intelligence and knowledge. Tyler's estimated IQ was 136.2. 37. William Henry Harrison, our 9th president, had a pretty solid education, even having a tutor at home growing up. He studied at Hampton-Sydney College in Virginia for 3 years, but then his dad wanted him to become a doctor, so he went to Philadelphia to study under Benjamin Rush, a super famous doctor and founding father, which is pretty impressive. But then his dad died, and Harrison was like, "You know what, being a doctor isn't really my thing." So he left medical school and went for what he really wanted to do, join the military. He had an estimated IQ of 133.9. 38. Martin Van Buren, our 8th president, had a similar story to Andrew Jackson in terms of education. His family wasn't well off, so he didn't have the chance to go to fancy schools. He did attend a one-room schoolhouse in Kinderhook, New York, until he was 14. But he never went to college. However, his dad managed to get him a job as a law clerk, where he did the grunt work during the day and studied law at night for 7 years. He was determined to succeed, and after moving to New York City, he passed the bar exam and became a lawyer. Van Buren's story shows that even without a traditional college education, hard work and dedication can open doors. He had an estimated IQ of 133.4. 39. Andrew Jackson, our 7th president, had a different kind of educational experience. He grew up in the Carolinas, where formal schooling wasn't as common, and his family couldn't afford fancy schools anyway. So it's a bit unclear exactly how much schooling he got. We know he wasn't the best at writing or spelling, and he lost his parents and 2 brothers when he was just 14 during the American Revolution. Now, despite the challenges he faced, he did study law at an office in Salisbury, North Carolina, and became a pretty successful lawyer. It's proof that determination and experience can go a long way, even without a formal education. His estimated IQ was 126.5. 40. John Quincy Adams, our 6th president. John Quincy Adams is often called the smartest U.S. president. Growing up in an intellectual family, his dad was President John Adams. He had the best education. During the Revolution, he studied in Europe, including at Passy Academy in France and the University of Leiden in the Netherlands. But he wasn't happy there and returned to the U.S. to attend Harvard. Like his father, he studied law and became an expert speed reader, taking notes using shorthand. With an IQ of 168.75, his brilliance is unmatched. 41. James Monroe. James Monroe, our fifth president, and his interesting take on education. He actually dropped out of the College of William and Mary, which might sound unusual for a future president. But here's the thing. He had a good reason. He joined the American Revolutionary War. Fighting for freedom was a pretty important cause, so we can't blame him for putting education on hold. After the war, Monroe got back to learning, studying law, and guess who his mentor was? None other than Thomas Jefferson. Talk about a great connection. And while he didn't have the same kind of formal education as some of the other presidents, Monroe's experiences and connections played a big part in shaping his leadership. His estimated IQ was 124.1. 42. James Madison, our fourth president, and his awesome education at Princeton. Now, it wasn't called Princeton back then. It was the College of New Jersey, but we know it as Princeton today. At 18, Madison was already diving into some serious studies: Latin, Greek, theology, and philosophy. And he was really interested in the works of the Enlightenment, which influenced his political ideas in a big way. Think about it. Without his studies, we might not have the Constitution. Pretty powerful stuff, right? Just like his friend Jefferson, Madison was a lifelong learner, always eager to soak up knowledge. He never stopped exploring and expanding his mind. His estimated IQ was 141.25. 43. Our third president, Thomas Jefferson, started at the College of William and Mary at 17, spending 7 years training to become a lawyer. Though he didn't graduate, he got a solid gentleman's education and later earned 4 honorary degrees. A lifelong learner, Jefferson was a strong advocate for public education and never stopped seeking knowledge. With an IQ of 153.75, he's remembered as one of the smartest U.S. presidents. 44. John Adams, our second president, and his stellar academic track record. He wasn't just any old student. He went to Harvard. Now imagine this. At 16 years old, he's walking through the halls of Harvard College. Pretty impressive, right? He graduated at 20, making him one of only 5 presidents to earn a Harvard degree. And it doesn't stop there. By the time he was 23, he had a master's degree from Harvard. That's a pretty serious academic powerhouse, even by today's standards. His estimated IQ was 142.5. 45. George Washington, our first president. George Washington never graduated from college, high school, or even middle school. His education was basically the equivalent of modern-day grade school, but he did earn a surveyor's certificate from the College of William and Mary, which helped him start his career. This lack of formal schooling held him back early in life, which might explain why he later pushed for better education for all. In fact, he left money in his will to fund 3 schools. With an IQ of 132.5, Washington showed that you don't need a degree to lead a nation. If I missed anything, feel free to let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out the rest of the series. Don't forget to subscribe and share Who Remembers with someone you think would love it. As always, thank you so much for watching.